point. From a creative point of view, it's unquestionably unlocking more creative avenues for us as filmmakers.
A7s Wireless Digital is the perfect wireless audio solution for content creators and filmmakers. Thanks to a 2.4 GHz transmission, A7s Wireless Digital is a truly plug-and-play system that allows you to upgrade your in-camera audio with one-button operation. With a variety of configurations to choose from, this entry point into the world of wireless will improve your workflow and will expand the possibilities of how you capture audio for your video. For more information, visit sennheiser.com/xswd.
The new Super 35 sensor that Canon have introduced with the C300 Mark III is quite a big step up from other S35 sensors that they have created before. From the body and the flexibility that gives us in terms of the expansion packs and the interchangeable mount, to the sensor with its increased dynamic range for tackling scenes that possibly we couldn't have tackled or captured faithfully before, I can get more out of this camera. My money goes further. It's as simple as that from a business standpoint. From a creative point of view, it's unquestionably unlocking more creative avenues for us as filmmakers.
Hello everyone, welcome to Pro VTV. Thank you very much for joining me today. I am joined by Jon Edwards from Naive Films. Hello John, how are we today?
Good afternoon, Carl. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you to Zeiss as well.
Yep, absolutely. So to make everyone aware, today is a stream where we're just going to be chatting. We're going to be informally chatting to Jon about his experience, mainly using Zeiss lenses, but also the brand new A7s III. The other thing I just want to make everyone who's watching aware of is I have got a slight technical problem my end with hearing Jon. So you guys shouldn't notice any delay. We were just desperately trying to get it fixed before going live, but I haven't managed it. And in my earpiece, I've got a little bit of a delay on Jon. So if there's any awkward pauses, that's probably why. It's not just me being a really bad host. I promise, I'm an excellent host. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, Jon. I thought a good place for us to start would be to play your reel and then talk a little bit about yourself and how you got started, what kind of work you do, what Naive is, and all the rest of it. For those watching at home, throughout all of this, I can see the YouTube chat and the Facebook chat, so just leave any questions that you have and you want to. We're happy to steer this conversation whichever way you're all interested in by what you're asking in the chat. So please do be as active as you like in that chat. And that is the best bit about doing these live, is that we can involve everyone watching.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Dan, can we roll the naive clip to begin with? There's some stylish work in there, John. There's some nice stuff.
Thank you, Carl.
So, do you want to start by explaining a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So, I guess I kind of set up Naive probably around 2013. I was working as a graphic designer after university I worked as a graphic designer for like 10 years after uni. And I was shooting some film work on the side, but it was just hobby stuff really, and photography. And then I put a project into the Sony Pro Production Awards, and I didn't expect it to get anywhere. It was more just for some general feedback really. And then bizarrely, it won the commercial sector. So it was kind of at that point that I was like, maybe I could do more with this. I do love doing it because it's more like a hobby than my full-time thing. And then Sony were great, and they gave me an FS700 at the time when it was released. And I had training. I went down to Pinewood Studios, and I learned color grading and lighting, and a lot of post elements. Yeah, so that was really cool. And then from there, it started to they helped me out a little bit. I did a show reel for the FS for Sony directly over a summer period of like slow motion work. And then from there, yeah, I kind of got obsessed with film work really more than the graphics, and I guess really hit a point where I realized working full time in-house doing graphics, it was for the NHS actually, but I was always conveying someone else's like poor idea essentially. Whereas with the film work, no one can really, well, especially, if you kind of go beyond a client's expectation, then you kind of get it. I feel like you always get it signed off. So, yeah, it just worked a lot better for me and how I like to work. So I kind of just, I got more involved. I kind of started shooting a little fashion series on the side, and I sold that to a big men's platform. I guess now that wouldn't be something that would happen, but then that must have been around 2014, 2015, and things were still quite fresh, on the online front of like social content. And yeah, it's just gone from there really. I've kind of grown with all the social content and how that's gone for better and for worse, shall we say. There's a lot of stuff that I hate about it. But yeah. So I guess really we specialize in that now. We've done primetime TV ads and stuff like a few times, but predominantly our work is in social content and online YouTube, Vimeo type content for brands. So predominantly
a lot
fashion.
Of that reel is fashion and sort of
Yes,
work with models. Is that the main majority of the work you do?
Yeah, and I suppose as the reel is, it's kind of how we've based stuff, and the way we've gone with it. The end of last year, we did a project with Mercedes in Australia, which was great, and that was more like a branded doc instead, about a family traveling the world in a Mercedes vehicle.
Nice.
And it was nice to they really wanted our style of work and had seen stuff, and we'd never worked with them at all. So it was good to work with that producer and the agency and kind of go about that. And, for us as well, that was a much bigger project than a lot of, say, the social content that we do. The budget was bigger, and obviously it was getting flown out to Australia and all the rest of it. So it was quite exciting. Obviously, since then, we went straight into lockdown, and we got on well with the producer and the agency, and Mercedes were really happy. So all that's kind of folded for the time being, because obviously they don't want to be seen to be shooting all over the world. Yeah, so I think all the content for them has gone directly back to Germany at the moment. But but yeah, we're on good terms. So hopefully, there'll be more projects, and hopefully Naive we'll go outside of fashion again, which I'd like to. I feel like it's nice telling, like genuine stories rather than kind of glossy showpieces. But
yeah, but there's a lot of fun to be had in fashion as well. I mean, I've always thought it's one of the more creative styles. Effectively, it's corporate video. You're making a video for a company's social media platforms. I mean, it sounds so dull to describe it as corporate video, but that is essentially what they are. And so in the world of corporate video, I've always thought fashion is one of the areas where you can have the most creative license and just fun with it. Because you don't need to worry about structure. You don't need to worry about story or anything. I mean, obviously you want it to have some sort of a narrative arc and consistent thing going through it. But if they're there and then they're there, they can just be standing on top of that thing because it looks cool. They don't need to have a reason to be standing on top of that cool thing. Yeah. I've always thought it would be quite a fun area to work in.
Definitely. And I find, I feel like we do quite well in it, or we were talking to the producer on the Mercedes job, that we kind of still weave in like a little beginning to end point in each film, or as you said, like there's just some factors that make sense, even if it's like a visual story, that you're going establishing wide to medium close up to close up, or just that it flows well. Where I feel a lot of the content now, because brands are going cheaper and cheaper and getting faster work off people, that a lot of the content's really poor. Like people are shooting stuff on iPhones and all kinds of nonsense for big brands. So I feel like we're just trying to stick to our guns a little bit and make sure everything that we put out is still us essentially. Or if a project gets ruined by, say, the marketing team or whatever, we just we take the money and run. Like we're like, okay, well, we got involved and we're doing it, but unfortunately, it's not how we want to be seen, so we won't, So, but again, I think we try and stay away from that because we don't want to go quiet on social, because that's where all our clients and work is. So if I do, say, 4 films in a month and I don't put one out, I look like I've disappeared. So I don't like that either, So, it's that awkward balance.
No, absolutely. I mean, you are a client for yourself as well in many ways. You've got to make sure that you have your own social media content. But in the talking of the structure of thing, and we'll play your first clip in a minute, the Lego one. But you used the word flow to describe it, which I think is a great way of describing it. Because I mean, in a normal sequence, so like a B-roll or anything like that, you would have structure, you'd have continuity, and you'd have that lady walks from point A to point B. You need some sort of narrative stitching to make that feel natural. Whereas in fashion, you don't necessarily need to fill in the blanks between it and have it as an actual consistent structure. But it does still need to flow, and it needs to have the right feel for the audience, and that's the most important bit. I think the word flow is a great way to describe that.
I like what you said also about how like with it, I love old 80s horror films, and how with stuff like that you kind of you kind of take what you want from it. There's not a lot of gore. They didn't have all the effects then, so it's kind of your mind plays tricks on you or gives you ideas, and that's more scary than anything. So weirdly with this work, I feel like the touching upon a story or the idea of what something that's happened leaves everyone to kind of interpret it in their own way, and I feel like that helps the work a lot, where you either want to see more or you feel like you've worked out the message, but really there isn't a message. Essentially, it's kind of just keeping you entertained. So
okay, that's probably a good time to start by playing the Lego one. So do you want to introduce what we're about to watch here?
Oh yeah, so I work a lot with Hype clothing, which they're from the UK, but they're kind of worldwide now. They've got a big sales presence in China and Japan and across Europe. I think the only place they're not is America, maybe. But so they're great. They've got big budgets and they do big collaborations. And this one was with Lego, strangely. So they do a lot of kids' clothing, so I guess it works with that market. But so for this, it was the Ninjago sector of Lego. So they wanted it really kind of upbeat, exciting. So we brought in some motorbikes and a breakdancer. And we went to a container yard, so it kind of replicated the idea of building and bricks and large color spaces.
Oh, nice. I hadn't
So
made that link.
was
That's nice.
Yeah, there was a nod to it there, but yeah, it did look a bit crazy though. It was shot at night, and just a lot of intense visuals going on. So I don't know so much maybe about the child aspect of it. I'd almost think if I played it to my children, they'd be afraid of it. But it was really fun to create, So from our point of view, it was fantastic. So yeah, we had a big lighting team in and stuff for it. So yeah, it was good. Great project.
Cool. Let's play it. It is very stylish. So what was the crew and the behind the scenes picture like on that?
Yeah, so the crew overall, we had one main lighting tech, a guy from Manchester, Skipper Jack, great guy. He does a lot of stuff for Netflix, I think, but he likes doing the commercial stuff because he said, it's a lot more kind of haphazard, and we kind of just switch setups, and it's a bit more free for all, like you said, I guess. With the fashion stuff, it's more creative, where he was like with Netflix, it's solid. He's like, I come in, I do 2 setups a day, and that's it, and I sit around a lot. Whereas we had him running around. We shot from 5 p.m. till 2 a.m. and it was freezing cold, raining a little, and I think he was in his element. He just loved all of it, and we'd agreed most of the setups, but there was a couple of extra ideas thrown in, and complications, and shooting different frame rates and stuff. So yeah, it was very amusing, and it was a good time. So and then I think he brought 3 assistants with him to deal with all the lighting kit. So there was 4 essentially, and they brought in hadn't seen one before, but one of those vans that's like essentially a large generator on wheels. So it was like a transit van, but it was just like a generator. So that was kind of cool. And then aside from that, we had a BTS filmer, George Hayes, that I brought in for some extra content for Sony and Zeiss and stuff, just so I could kind of hand back to the brands I'm involved with. And then the main lead, or the creative lead on the project, is Joe Docker. He's the photographer for Hype, and he's in charge of all that side of things. So essentially this was Joe's child, like the idea of it all and how it's going to come together. So I worked very closely with Joe as kind of the freelancer in on the campaign work. And then I think we had 3 runners, the guys on the motorbikes. I think they had some extra help as well with the bikes and stuff on setting up and fuel and all the rest of it for the whole time. And a stylist, and a makeup artist. So that was it.
And how long was the shoot? Just one evening?
Yeah, one evening, yeah. So we'd been and scouted the site in advance and took photos of the areas we wanted to work in. And then we'd sent them to the lighting team. And then, that was it, really. It kind of went from there. So it was very hectic throughout. No breaks, but
yep, I bet.
Yeah. And it was very cold. So there's a lot of people like sitting in cars with the cars running and stuff, trying to eat snacks and then continuing whilst changes were happening.
No one's car battery died, did it?
No, fortunately not. No.
That's always the problem with that.
Yeah. Definitely.
And am I right in thinking this was the first project first large project anyway that you'd used the new Sony A7s on?
Yeah, it was. So I shot one project on it first down in Brighton and Manchester, which was more like a story-driven fashion campaign. But at the time with that, I'd got the wrong SD cards for the camera, so I thought they were the right ones, but they were wrong ones. So I couldn't shoot the spec I wanted out of the camera, so I had to just roll with it. And I actually just shot in HD because I was like, look, it's a social project, social content project. It's a long project. It's like a couple of minutes shoot. It's not under a minute like it normally is. And just to simplify it and turn it around on time, I'm going to leave what I know. So it was still better because the colors out of the camera were better than say the A7 III. But yeah, until this project, yeah, I hadn't really seen the camera all singing or dancing, so it was really good shooting in 4K, shooting 10-bit, yeah, 422. It was just, yeah, much nicer, and especially with low light, like it was really good. I was really impressed with it. The film's actually got a lot of grain in post on it, so it doesn't really quite justify how sharp and amazing it is, because we were going for a film look with it. But yeah, I'm sure it's still, you can still see in the mids and stuff like how much it holds detail wise, and the grade was great.
We've got some more of your work which we can play later on, the gym stuff you sent over, which I think has a much cleaner, sort of more sharp and modern look, if you like, to it.
Yeah.
But I think it is good to see. I think channels like ours and dealers and people that spend a lot of time talking about equipment, we're often guilty of only ever going for that look, that sharp, clean, you know, trying to make cameras look as technically perfect as possible.
Yes.
But in the real world, when you're out there shooting for clients, that's often not what they want. Especially for something like this. Like, this was a large part of the reason this was so stylish was the look and the feel that they generated. And if this had a beautifully clean look, that wouldn't have been there. It would have been counterproductive, massively so.
Yeah,
but I think
completely.
The large benefit of. Sorry.
No. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's nice that Hype would do that, and they've got the younger audience to kind of appreciate that. And and Joe as the creative as well to sign it off, and he kind of knows what he likes. And I gave him a rough couple of shots graded with the grain and everything post wise, and he was like, this is awesome, I'm going to do the same with the photos. So it worked really well. And I think you're right, rather than a lot of people really going for, say, like a red 8K super sharp kind of look to it, and something that rang true to me straight away when we were shooting the Mercedes project in Australia was, I was chatting to the producer Daniel, and he said then about not shooting on over sharp lenses. He's like, maybe look at investing in some vintage primes via Zeiss or something, rather than something ultra new and modern, because he's like, the work you make looks quite cinematic, I like it. So he's like, maybe you should go down that route more than really aiming for like super crisp whatever K quality it now is. But I see both sides of it. Obviously, like the gym work, they wanted it to look like that, and it suited the project. So it's nice to have that flexibility that you can just do it in post, rather than being left with literally, like film content if you shot it on 35mm or something. So
there's other ways other than just doing it in post as well. I mean, yes, you can do it in post, and you can add film grain like you did in this one, and a stylistic color grade, and even sharpen the image. But there are lots of ways to do it very well optically, even with ultra sharp modern lenses like the Zeiss latest ones. Simply by adding diffusion and all the rest of it, you can really craft the look that you want by starting with quite a clean lens. And that is something I often talk about with customers, is when you're choosing lenses for not just for a project, but for you and your work. I often try and push people towards more technically perfect lenses, because you can always rough them up. Whereas you can't take a vintage lens and make it look like a modern one. Whereas you can go the other way.
Yeah. Saying that, actually, I've got another project in a timeline right now that I'm just starting to cut. And it's one of those where I feel like we can push the project where we want it to go, but it is shot on the A7s III with the Zeiss lenses. And again, it's all shot in 4K at 120 and 24 frames. So like you said, it's got that option that if they actually go, oh, do you know what, we don't actually like that, and we've seen some stills and they're really clean, we want it all clean, then like you said, there's no problem that we can just pull that out of it and be like, that's easy. So it's much better, isn't it? Is
very good point.
Yeah. You've always got that
often
in the bag.
Clients have one thing in their mind, and then when they actually see it, they go, or somebody else gets involved, which quite often happens, and goes,
definitely.
Oh, actually, maybe that's a bit too far. And go, oh, okay. how do I pull this back if I've done it all in camera?
Yeah, because I just heard that happen with the photos for it, where the photos were delivered and there were some BTS photos, and the BTS photos were quite warm, and the campaign photos are quite cold, which was also what I wanted to do with it. I'd spoke with the photographer, we work a lot together, and yeah, it's actually gone the other way, that they want them to look warm, even though I feel like the environment suited a colder blue tone to it. But yeah, so we're having to go the other way. So yeah, it's just, yeah, like you said, it's nice to have that flex that you can do whatever you like with it. So,
and that is with the camera, one of the advantages of going for a camera like the A7s Mark III is the 10-bit, is the high frame rates, and is the clean ISOs. And so
yes,
when a lot of those, yes, you can make it look perfect in camera, but when you're talking about making a noisier and a slightly more rough and ready thing, you don't want the camera to be applying that noise, because one, that's out of control, and two, it'll vary between shots, and three, it's not the prettiest looking noise either, digital.
No, it's really not, is it? Yeah,
really not. So the cleaner you can get that image, even if you're just going to add loads of grain to it later, the better. And that 10-bit is going to be what means that you can change the color, temperature, and mess about with the grading, like you said. Because with the A7 III, for example, you could have made that project. It wouldn't have looked quite as good, but it would have been there. But if your client had come back and said, "Can we change this with it? Can we take it from a warmer feel to a colder feel?" you would have been running up against 8-bit, and you had another problem to try and fix.
Yeah,
massively. It would have been doable, but it would have been a problem.
Yeah, 100%. The other thing with the latest project that was really good, I ran some tests first, obviously in advance, but we shot it on the higher ISO that Sony saying it's not dual, but is kind of dual. So on the 12800,
it's dual, isn't it?
Yeah. So we shot on the 12800, and it's crazy. So we shot that at 120 frames, and I really liked it with the high action stuff coming from skateboarding and BMXing background. I like to overcrank the shutter on the slow-mo stuff, so it just gave me that flexibility. I could have the shutter really high as well, so things are really crisp when the action's happening. So yeah, it worked really.
And so you did shoot that up at 12,000 ISO, even though you had a lighting and a grip team.
Yeah. So we had lighting. We had a couple of Arris in, and then I had a couple of apertures of my own as like the keys through like a diffuser, and then. But we ran it on the higher ISO, so I could shoot 120 frames throughout. It was a really dark setup. It was in like an old mill, and the daylight sods already started. It started when we got in the building and set up. The daylight was coming in, but it just kind of went over the building, so we lost it straight away. So it was completely shot with the lights. So it just worked really well. If anything, it was probably good that the light went, because it was just consistent then for the whole day. Like it was running purely off the lights rather than any daylight. So
absolutely. We just had a question from Camille, who's saying, do you use DaVinci Resolve? Is that what you were using to make those color changes?
No, so strangely, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, right," when I say this, but I do everything in Final Cut because coming from graphic design and always working on a Mac, I picked up Final Cut really early on at college, and I just was so used to it. I did have that weird switchover point where it went from 7, I think, to X, and everyone hated it. I went with it, and it was bad.
Bit of a learning curve, wasn't it?
Oh, massively, yeah. You lost so many things. It did feel like a very like dulled down visual experience instead. But it's. I feel like it's back up there now, and it's really good. From what people show me that they're doing in other programs, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, or I'd like to switch. So yeah, everything's in Final Cut layers.
Yeah, excellent. Why not? If it's working for you, stick with it.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Right. So which lens? Let's talk about lenses for a bit, shall we? So on that hype one that we saw, which actual lenses were you using on that one?
Yeah, so for the slow shutter drags as like transitions in it with the motorbikes moving and the dancing, I had a FS5 II. That's like my kind of B cam really, I suppose now, which I do all my handheld work with. And that was set up with Batis 85mm, just because I felt for the drags, I wanted them to be quite like kind of close and personal feeling to the model. So you were getting kind of like portraiture type work out of it, or product detail, and making sure there was lights behind, so it would kind of blur out, and you'd get like nice drags of light as you went with it. So that was on the 85, and then So on the Sony, we used the Batis 40mm.
Okay, that's one of the newer ones, I think, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And the reason for that was with, say, the motorbikes, at points I jumped on the other motorbike and ran alongside the guy pulling wheelies and stuff. So obviously using the continual focus on that, which is great. We also hung out of a car boot as well. So it just made that much easier to kind of track what was going on action-wise, having that continual, rather than, setting a distance and trying to keep to
I
it.
haven't actually tried the 40mm. I've
Yeah,
tried
really
most of
nice.
the Batis lenses. I've tried the 135 and the 85 and the 28. Is it? Is that the wider one? 25.
25, yeah.
But I've never tried the 40.
Yeah, excellent. And it's also
It's
got
one
a
of my
macro
favourite
option
focal
on it
lenses,
as
the
well.
40.
Yeah, I think my
Has it?
favorite is 35, which is
Oh yeah, close focus.
my go-to was always this Loxia 35, which is phenomenal.
Okay.
I love it. It's so sharp. I'd actually say it's sharper than the other lenses, but obviously it's fully manual. So where I can, I will use that. But yeah, as a kind of happy medium on tracking shots as well, I'd probably use the Batis, and then obviously you've got that option to shoot some macro shots as well if you want them. So yeah, it's kind of like a win-win.
If people aren't familiar with the Zeiss range, the ones that you just mentioned quickly there are these Loxia. So Loxia are their manual range, if you like, of E-mount lenses. They've got a whole set of these primes in fully manual lenses, and then the Batis ones, which are the ones that you did use on this project, are their. I mean, these ones were originally designed for stills because they're autofocus lenses, while the Loxia were designed for video because they're manual lenses. But I mean, obviously, there's a massive amount of crossover there, especially now that the A7s and the FX6 and FX9 have got such fantastic autofocus. The Batis lenses are a brilliant choice for that.
Yeah, definitely. They work really well. I originally liked the Loxia lenses. I love because they are basically like mini cine primes, and they're great to use. But yeah, now with the autofocus being trustworthy, it's kind of opened things up tremendously. And obviously the Zeiss lenses work really fast. They're E-mount and all the rest of it. So it works really well. And obviously it's quite a light setup. They're very well made, so they're very robust and weather sealed. Just really good kit.
I mean, you say that they're almost like mini cinema lenses. That is absolutely the case. I mean, they do these mini, medium, and large lenses. For the Loxias, you probably want the minis, I think, do you? Or maybe the mediums. I'd have to look at that. But these are literally just screw-on teeth basically for the focus ring, which means that you can chuck them into a follow focus or a wireless follow focus, and effectively treat them as cinema primes, but for this kind of money rather than £3,000 a lens or any of the other cinema primes that Zeiss do. So yeah, they're a fantastic choice for an affordable sort of cinema lens set. And the other big advantage of that is that they are tiny. They're really, really small. And so often when you're taking cinema primes on a shoot, you need to have a whole case that is your cinema primes, and that has to go everywhere your camera goes so that you can change lens. Whereas these are tiny. You can chuck a couple of these in a shoulder bag. Do whatever you want. Yeah, completely.
Because that's what we find with shoots up until this COVID shutting everything down. We'd shoot a lot of work in LA, and we'd kind of take multiple brands out to kind of fund a trip and all the rest of it, just with guaranteed light and great locations and such. So obviously with having kit this small, it's great to fly everything over. We wouldn't be doing any more than we'd have one hold luggage bag with a gimbal, say, put in it with the batteries taken out, and I'd walk on with hand luggage, and I'd have all my kit basically in a large, like low pro bag or something, and I'd have everything in there. It's great. Nice and easy.
Absolutely. But I do think the 40mm Batis range in as a whole really are a perfect match for the A7s III. I haven't actually seen a huge amount of customers coming to us saying, I've just bought an A7s III and I'm thinking of the Batis. But whenever we bring up the Batis with customers, they tend to then go, oh yes, I have heard of those from when the E-mount was new. those would be a
Yes.
great choice, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And sort of come back to them. I think because they've been on the market since the E-mount was first there, or at least
Yes,
some of them
yeah.
have, like the 85 has. The 40 is actually very new in terms of a lens. They often sort of not get forgotten about, but aren't right there at the forefront of people's minds in the same way as the camera is.
For
I think
sure.
they're a perfect match.
I was also previously with, like, say, if I had the A7s II and the crop factor on that was shooting 120 and or 4K. I was using the 25 more, or also the 18, just to kind of compensate that if I wanted to shoot like ultra wide.
Makes sense.
So which again, like the 18 is really good, like minimal distortion on it. It's really nice. And the 25 is kind of, especially with the slightly older cameras, is like a happy medium to try and keep it almost 35, really, with the crop factor. So, yeah.
Because when these first came out, they were, I think it was just the 18 and the 35, I think, when it came out. And then the 25 was added. But for the longest time, it was that range of 3, which always felt a little bit sort of strange in the video world, because in the stills world, you can shoot on whatever focal length you want. In the video world, it's all about structure and different things. So we found a lot of people going towards the Loxias rather than the Batis, simply because the range wasn't there on the Batis. Whereas now, we've got a 18, 25, 40, 85, and 135. That is your entire range. You've got a really good selection of wide angles all the way up to portrait lenses. But I reckon if you only could afford one of those lenses, well, which one would you pick if you could only afford one of those Batis lenses for your A7S?
A 40, obviously. I think it's just it's the most flexible. My friend, actually, the photographer I work with all the time, Jacob, he's just switched over to Sony, and the first thing he bought as part of his kit, he's got more now, but it was initially a camera body, an alpha, and the 40mm. And I think since then he's added an 85 and a 25, I think. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right, we've got
definitely.
a couple of questions coming in.
Okay.
So Camille has chimed back asking, what type of microphones do you use for your commercial work?
Oh, yeah. So currently I've got a Rode Video Mic X, I think it is. The one that's like a large, looks like a tennis ball type thing. Ambient mic.
The stereo one.
Yes, which is fantastic. It's just like the quality out of it's amazing. And I just, I do a lot of just pickups of audio wherever we are. If you want to build a scene, like city, or if we're in some woods, or we're filming next to a fire or something. And it's really good. It just holds up next to the music tracks and all the rest of it. So that's nice. And then I have got a Rode lav kit as well, like lapel mic kit. Which I used to use more for, like, when I finished working for the NHS, I used to do some corporate stuff still, so I used it a lot more then and a lot less now, really. I find myself borrowing it out to friends and such.
I mean, how much audio do you actually do day to day in your projects if they're fashion based? Do you? Is it
not so
most
much.
of it visuals only? Yeah,
I've just found now, say the gym projects that we've just done, obviously just again some ambient noises for those. So all the slow shutter stuff again on the FS, it's much easier as well, because obviously it's got the XLR mic with that. So I've been doing them on that instead, and just taking snippets and bites here and there of what I need. So a lot of time, you just wouldn't put a mic on really, because it's not needed for the project. But
sure.
Yeah.
Let's since you mentioned those gym ones, let's give those a play, shall we, and have a look and see something from a bit of a different style from you.
Yeah. Great.
interestingly on that, there's an awful lot of sort of push-ins to their face.
Yes,
in the model's face, which I guess is what the A7s III is perfect for. That was autofocus, was it?
Yes, yeah. Ran auto. A lot of that again was actually the 40 and I think the 85. And just it worked really well. The male and female videos were slightly different. The male work was meant to be a bit more aggressive and a bit more kind of intense gym workout with how the brand's kind of marketed, because their social is split. So the main account for Gym King is predominantly male workout kind of activewear, and then the female side of it is a bit more cutesy and colourful and and that's what they wanted with the female model in the gym, that she wasn't doing intense workouts. I started shooting like that because I thought I could, but they were like, no, we just want to walking around, having breaks. We can do a bit on the treadmill, but we don't want anything too intense. We've looked at what's coming back on social and it doesn't work for us. So yeah, a lot of that stuff was a lot more kind of staged and posed.
So that was the female one we've just watched, and then there's another one which is the guy. Should we have a little look at that one?
Oh yeah. So that's slightly different.
I see what you mean. Lots of much more frantic movement, that slow shutter coming in as well.
Yeah.
It's good. I wish I looked half as stylish as that when I was working out.
I'm sure we all feel the same on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. Ty, the model, was really good. I think he owns a gym anyway, so it was nice and easy that he was actually suggesting stuff that he thought would come across well. So that worked. And then obviously we were kind of doing more work towards what I thought I was going into, or what I wanted to do more with it. It was like the first time shooting active, so I wanted to make it really intense and lots of exercise and lots of slow shutter blurs and frantic movements and some sound design in it, where obviously it didn't really need the sound design so much for the female elements, because it was more just ambient kind of chilling out kind of thing. So yeah, and then again,
I think it works, and they feel, although you're saying that there is this big difference in terms of style, in terms of they feel like one constant message, one constant brand, which is so important, isn't it?
Definitely.
That's nicely done.
Keep that with it. Cool, thank you, Cole.
So we're getting a couple more questions. Harden Studio says, damn, you guys are up early. What part of the world are you joining us from, Harden? I'm really interested to hear that, because over here it's 2:30 in the afternoon. I guess you're in America or somewhere like that, are you? Lawrence is saying...
lazy on lockdown.
Oh, yeah, maybe he's just very lazy on lockdown. 2:30 isn't early for him to get up now. We've now got a couple of questions about monitors and rigs. Lawrence is asking, what do you use to monitor? Do you use a small HD or something similar, or do you just use the back screen or even a wireless system? And then Video Editor Bloke is asking, do you use any kind of rig around the A7s III? Which are similar questions. How do you rig your camera up? Is it fairly bare bones, or do you rig it up a bit?
Yeah, so it is essentially, I've got a small HD focus. I think it's an OLED 5-inch monitor.
Yep.
And I've got a card, and I've put some LUTs into it, to have a look at the color whilst I'm shooting, and we give it a producer or the marketeer if someone's on set and wants to see. But most of the time, if I can get away with it, I've got so used to shooting on the back of screens myself, and even with S-Log3, I've kind of just grown up working in that with the alpha range. I'm more than happy to check focus myself and just run with it, So it makes it a lot easier as well on myself for, like, say, long days when we're like, I don't know, like we've worked in LA before, and you do like 12 or 14 hours straight, lugging gear around the city from location to location in a van and stuff. So the more I can strip it back and still get the results I want, the better. Rather than, I see people with big like custom built rigs doing stuff like out on locations, but I'm like, our budgets are quite small for what we turn around on social content, so it's much easier to have a smaller setup if you can get with it. So.
And it's this monitor, is it the one you mentioned?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, really good, like absolutely great. I do like kind of focus on it is great. If say I was using the Loxias and putting focus peaking on it is really good. It's just so much easier to see,
sure,
in all honesty. But at the same time, I'm like, if I can get away with not having all the extra cables and add-ons, I'll run it as a single camera.
Have you ever used a wireless system at all for clients?
No, we haven't actually. No, it's not something we've been kind of pressed into, and it's something I guess I would have thought if we'd done more with Mercedes. I know it was asked when we first got there and we first met the producer that he was keen to have. We were like, we haven't got anything like that with us from what we had as carry-on luggage and hold. But I think if we pursue more of that when we come out of lockdown, I think it was something that we'd be investing in. So.
I'll have to hook you up with one for you to try it out, because they do
definitely.
Really free. I mean, you mentioned trying to keep your rig as small as possible so that it keeps you working quickly and flexibly. But then if a client does need to see an image, trying to crowd around that or show them it on that tiny little black screen afterwards, it's absolutely ridiculous. So difficult.
Yeah.
Plus, it doesn't look very good. You want to impress your clients.
And they're seeing it flat as well, which is
exactly, and they're seeing it flat.
100%.
And so having a little even the little really cheap ones, like the Hollyland Wi-Fi ones that go to smartphones and iPads and stuff, even them, they're great now, and really quite affordable. But then there's also there's ones like the SWIT because obviously there's Teradex, which are pretty much the industry standard, which are fairly high price. But then there's middle ground options now, which we're starting to see more and more of, like the Curve, like these ones from SWIT, which are proper point-to-point 5G transmission, analog transmission, rather than Wi-Fi or something like all the other cheaper ones do. But the price point is there on them. So if anyone out there is looking for monitoring systems for cameras like the A7s, things like this are brilliant. But then if you can't stretch that in terms of budget, you can go down as low as this little Mars X from Hollyland. If all you're interested in is sending it to an iPad and the client's phone, this is great.
Yes. Yeah.
Really great little device. And tiny, like so affordable.
That's crazy. It would be good just to kind of keep people happy and, wrapping shots as well, that we're like, we're done, and they've checked that and they're happy with that as well. So, No,
that's a good point, actually. It saves time on set as well, because you don't have to show it to them after the clip for them to get their approval.
Yeah, especially if you've gone to like a key location or a key outfit, and they're like, this has to be right. So, if they can sign it off quicker, then everyone's working quicker. So, great.
Absolutely. Paramount is asking if you ever used the Atmos with the A7s.
Do you know what? I haven't. That is one thing that I was looking into, like a Ninja V now, because obviously what you can do with that with a recording. I've only just, I guess, off this camera video, I just upgraded the iMac that I'd got to the latest version to deal with the files. And then I've been making proxies as well, because I'm just finding it easier to edit and kind of, dragging through what I need. So I feel now that I've kind of got into working with proxies and kind of slowing down my workflow a little bit and being, seeing the results that it's worth it. So I think, probably the Atmos is the next move to see further results out of the camera, really.
No, absolutely. I'll hook you up with one of those as well if you like. Get you one to try out.
Yeah.
See if it makes a difference.
Fantastic.
For you. The other thing, I literally, since we were up on the website, I'll mention it now because otherwise I will forget at the end. If anyone out there is looking at A7Ss, Sony, it's not us, it's Sony, have got this winter deal on at the moment where you get cash back. So you get cash back on lenses that you pair with them. I don't think the A7s III itself is in the cashback offer, but there is a whole bunch of lenses in this cashback offer, which is pretty good deal. There's all sorts of stuff in there, which is great. And also the Batis lenses and stuff like that, we have a bunch of those in stock as well, so they are nice. Often we find on lenses availability can be a bit difficult, but we had quite a good batch of Batis ones recently, so we actually have some in available stock, which is quite nice. It was the Batis ones you used on that. You did mention it after we watched them, but on the gym one, wasn't it?
Yes, on the gym one again, for tracking shots and walking through the gym, and even for some of like the fast movements. Yeah, we use the Batis just for the focus option on it. So yeah, it worked really well.
Do you find you are using, on a project like that where you want to use autofocus, are you just sticking with the Batis all the way through, or are you swapping between the Loxias and the Batis lenses, depending on whether you want autofocus for that shot?
Yeah, to be honest, with being like realistic on, say, like the gym shoot was like an 8-hour shoot, and it was photography and video. So that was another reason why I stayed clear of shooting any slow motion. Shot it all real time, because the photographer, we were setting up lights between us and working like that then. So I shot everything as we were setting up on continuous lighting. So the black room scenes where they're more like fashion based instead of the gym stuff, that was just lit and it was prepped and it was ready to run straight through. So we went in first and did all 10 outfits there to make sure all the product was covered. And then we went into the gym and did all the exercises, because I kind of understood part of the brief was, oh, we've shot gym stuff before and it looks really cool, but you're not seeing the product, so it's kind of becomes irrelevant a little bit. So this was like a much better, they're really happy with the project because we boxed off all the outfits in one room with the same light setup that we had in the gym essentially, and we just had one lighting tech in and he moved stuff around. Oh, and then also grip wise, you were saying as far as a rig on the camera, so I've just switched actually. So forever in a day, I've been using the Ronin M, which I know is quite old now, really. But I've had 2 of them, and they've just been easy to transport when we've been going around the world on projects and all the rest of it. It's been easy to fly and non-complicated. Because I'd looked at a Movi, but it's such a big item. I'd have to pay to send it separately, and the brands would just never cover that. I'd end up paying myself. So I was like, oh, I'd love to, but that's not going to happen for me. So yeah, and I had no complaints with the AM really. It's been really stable, really good throughout. So only now did I decide I thought the RS2 looked good, and obviously the motors were better. So I've just switched, and I just shot a music video on it with the single-handed gimbal, which I've always kind of hated the idea of, in all honesty, because I felt if you turn up to a paid set and you turn up with a really small item, you just look a bit like, I don't know, a travel videographer or something, you know, it just looks a bit Mickey Mouse. So, and it's not at all, like it works really, it works really well. And same actually with the cameras, you pull out the Alpha camera and everyone thinks it's a low budget.
Oh, my uncle's got one of those, yeah,
and you pull out the FS and everyone's like wowed by it. But really, currently with those 2 cameras, the Alpha camera, wipes the floor with the FS, but still. So so I'm just about to rig up that RS2, I think, with the Tilter cage whenever that's available.
Tilter do loads of bits for the RS2. They've done some really cool stuff. I don't think it's all available yet, but
no, and the car mount as well looks really good. I think that's like $3,000 or something, but it's like a full-on setup. It looks very interesting for the money that it is. So.
Does look very good. And did you use that on the gym one? Because there was quite a few sort of moving shots in that, and like I said, the glides in towards the models.
So the Lego project was the last project I think that I used the Ronin M on, and then I shot a music video, which was just actually a guy walking through the snow like repeatedly. It's just a very like chill ambient track. So that was quite a simple project to kind of start working with the RS2. So we did that, and I think in the end the car pulls away from him. It's like a tracking shot where he's walking, and it shows portrait and it goes to full body. So it's quite a long hanging shot. But we did that at the boot of the vehicle with the RS, and it was really good. So that's when I was confident enough to take it on a commercial shoot. And then so the gym one was like the first essentially, and it's been really good.
Excellent. Any other little key bits of kit that you were using on that shoot? It's worth a mention.
So with that, from going with the single-handed stuff with the music video. He's a close friend anyway. He's a signed artist and all the rest of it. But I know Mike's really relaxed. So if there was anything wrong, we could go back and reshoot. So that wasn't an issue. But with the gym shoot, I wanted to go back to dual handles on the gimbal. So I bought I think it's the DJI handle set for the RS2, just because I feel I'm so used to having it in two hands rather than a single for say like wraparound shots, like whip pan kind of stuff. It just works much better, I think, than a single hand.
You get less tired as well because one in front of you is always having two really helps you balance it.
I didn't realize with it as well that from going from the two, I was like, oh, it is nice to have the one though to flip it and go like, under for like low shots. But then I realized on the handles, it's got like an adjuster on the left side, so you can whip the handle around the back and it drops anyway. So that's definitely. It's definitely kind of modernized it. And I guess the other big thing is balancing the gimbal is super, super easy compared to the Ronin M.
The Ronin M was because it was very similar to that first generation Ronin. It was right at the beginning of that gimbal technology in terms of balancing. They've got so much easier. Yeah,
massively. Yeah, with like the micro adjusting wheel on it, and it just, I swear, I put it on and somehow I'm like, oh, it's balanced already. Like it's really good. So.
Absolutely, and we've seen so many more third-party options like Tilter or Small Rig do them to do all sorts of an ecosystem around these gimbals. But on balancing, something that's really useful for if you often use different cameras is those little offset weights. So it's like a little tripod plate that goes on the top, and then you can put different weights on either side of it to use different styles of lenses and different sizes of lenses or different cameras. Those are definitely worth a look at.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think that's a good place to wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for joining me and for sharing such insight on those clips. There's some really stylish work there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah. Thank you for your time, and thank you to Zeiss as well. It's been really good.
Cool. Okay. Thank you everyone so much for watching. We're going to be back next week with normal regular Q&A session on Monday. So hopefully I will see you then. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye.
A7s Wireless Digital is the perfect wireless audio solution for content creators and filmmakers. Thanks to a 2.4 GHz transmission, A7s Wireless Digital is a truly plug-and-play system that allows you to upgrade your in-camera audio with one-button operation. With a variety of configurations to choose from, this entry point into the world of wireless will improve your workflow and will expand the possibilities of how you capture audio for your video. For more information, visit sennheiser.com/xswd.
The new Super 35 sensor that Canon have introduced with the C300 Mark III is quite a big step up from other S35 sensors that they have created before. From the body and the flexibility that gives us in terms of the expansion packs and the interchangeable mount, to the sensor with its increased dynamic range for tackling scenes that possibly we couldn't have tackled or captured faithfully before, I can get more out of this camera. My money goes further. It's as simple as that from a business standpoint. from a creative point of view, it's unquestionably unlocking more creative avenues for us as filmmakers.